Gauteng has issued a stern warning to unlicensed initiation schools following the unfortunate deaths of initiates. It is reported that 2 initiates lost their lives between the 2nd of May and the 12th of June this year. One of the initiates died on the 8th of June at an illicit school in Ekurhuleni, while the second met a similar fate on the 10th of June at another illegal school in Tshwane. Now we continue this conversation with Kiba Gegana, who is the spokesperson for the Gauteng Initiation Coordinating Committee. Tate Kiba, thank you so much for joining us once again. Hopefully this time our line will be clear for us to have this conversation. Now, we were speaking before the break with regards to what is being done, or is there enough being done in order to avert these illegal initiation schools?
Thank you very much, Katlego, and good evening again to the viewers. As I indicated, we've got an overarching law called the Customary Initiation Act. The Customary Initiation Act makes provision for the establishment of a National Initiation Oversight Committee and a Provincial Initiation Committee. So the provincial initiation committees have got the responsibility to ensure that they protect the dignity of the institution of traditional leadership and to protect the cultural practices. In this regard, we try by all means to implement the law in order to save lives and to weed out all these illegal initiations. From the 2nd of May up until today, let me say so, we have closed 8 illegal schools, 6 in the city of Tshwane, 1 in the city of Joburg, 1 in Ekurhuleni, and we rescued 138 initiates from these schools. We say these schools are illegal because they were conducted without getting a permission from the statutory bodies like ourselves, the Provincial Initiation Coordinating Committee. So we only now we received about 152 applications. We approved 99. There are 53 that we did not approve. But before the 15th of June, because initiations are run in alignment with the school calendar. So officially, initiation started on the 15th of June. They will end on the 8th of July. As I said, it coincides with the school calendar. So all the schools that were operated prior to these dates, prior to the 15th of June, are illegal. Nobody afforded them a permit to do so. So in other words, these people decided not to abide by the rule of law. So we have arrested the South African Police Services in conjunction with the Provincial Monitoring Committee, ensured that 4 of the 8 illegal schools principals were arrested.
You speak of 53 of the initiation schools that had applied and were not approved by your committee. Just take us through the process and the requirements in terms of a school to be approved in order for them to be able to practice initiation on young boys.
The most important thing is to ensure that the space that they use to conduct initiation, it's a safe space. In other words, they have to prove that they've got a lease agreement or they've got a permission to occupy, probably from the landlord or from a traditional leader. That's very important because we want to ensure that basic amenities such as clean water, sanitation, and food is going to be provided to the initiate. That's very important. And secondly, there has to be a consent from parents and initiates who are undergoing initiation. And there has to be medical screening, medical sort of examination record that those initiations have gone through that. Because it's very important to know whether an initiate is having chronic diseases so that when they are initiated, they actually carry their medication into the centers so that we prevent death. As I said, our main objective is to prevent the loss of life. And the other requirement is that the school principals must have experience, 10 years experience of being involved in the initiation. And also, they must be over the age of 40 years. So these are some of the requirements. Of importance is that the consent from parents. Hence, we say if kids are taken without the consent of the parents or without them consenting, then it means already that is kidnapping or abduction. And if a school operates without a permit from the PICC, their school is termed illegal, and it's those who are conducting it are actually committing a criminal offense.
On the issue of consent, with the 8 illegal schools that you've discovered so far and that you've closed down, in communication with the parents of the initiates who were at these schools, was it a case of abduction, or were the parents willing, as well as the initiates, to take their children to these initiation schools?
Well, we received mixed reports. Some parents would say they knew where their kids were, but they never gave consent. And some parents would say they thought these schools were legal, hence they took their initiate. But from the onset, when a school is run without a permit, that school is illegal, it's not supposed to run. So it's a mixed bag of responses that we receive. But the other point that we need to mention is that these people who are running these schools, from our experience, because this thing has been happening over the years, most of them, they are notorious people within their communities. So parents are actually reluctant to talk about this. Parents are also reluctant to open cases. So in most cases, members of the community or some abducted initiates, they will run away from these schools and report these cases. So the information that we receive is through these sources. But we also do proactive monitoring. Like I'm saying, we now know that 53 schools were not granted permission. What we do, we monitor even those 53 schools, because you know some of these people, because they were rejected, they did not meet the criteria, they will attempt to run these schools. Because for some, this is a money-making scheme. They extort money from parents, because when kids are taken without the consent of the parents, these people demand money from these parents in order for them to release these kids at the end of the so-called initiation that they'll be conducting.
Lastly, Ntate Kekana, what's the role of the parents and the community? I mean, you do mention that in those instances where children are abducted, there's ransom money that is required from some of these parents. Do you find that these parents actually report these cases and setting off the alarm to say that these schools are illegal? And what can the community do in instances where they know that an illegal initiation school is being run within that community?
What we're doing currently, we started ever since the law was passed, because prior to this law being passed, we relied on various municipal bylaws, and they were not tough enough in terms of sanction of jails, of imprisonment and fines. Now that we've got that overarching legislation and a good collaboration with the criminal justice system and other sector departments, we also do education and awareness programs. We run them in these 5 regions of Gauteng: Tshwane, Joburg, Ekurhuleni, Sedibeng, and Westland. We do run this education and awareness. All what we need to do is to increase our stakeholder base engagements, so that as many people as possible are aware of this legislation, and they actually know that if somebody says they are running an initiation school, the first thing that they need to ask, do you have a permission from the Provincial Initiation Committee? And that permission, it's a letter that will be on the letterhead of the PICC, or it could be on the letter of the Cooperative Governance Department in Gauteng, COGTA Gauteng. So that is very important, because there are people also who have afforded themselves the status of being traditional leaders, even if they are not recognized in terms of the Traditional Leadership Cohesion Act, the TKLA. So we've got a multiplicity of problems. We've got people who regard themselves as traditional leaders. They give these fake permits to unsuspecting people who are running these initiations. So it is important, I think, for us going forward to work with quite a number of stakeholders Hence, in terms of municipalities, because you're working with them, they've created local initiation committees, and they're doing a fantastic job. A lot of these bogus initiation schools are identified by the local initiation committees. And there are parents, there are communities, members of the communities who are volunteering, who are assisting us in monitoring these initiation schools. So I think it requires the whole of society, the whole of government to join hands to ensure that this kind of a practice, it does not happen. If it happens, it has to happen within the parameters of the law. Because one mistake in this program, a person dies. And because we know that initiations are not about circumcision, it's a bigger package. It's part of a sacred cultural initiation practice, which contributes towards the development of our children and also assisting in guiding them towards a responsible adulthood. So we need to protect this sacred cultural practice because it's part of our broader education system. So we need to look at it from that perspective and take it very seriously, that anybody's child nowadays can be abducted. In the past, we thought it happens only in rural areas, but in townships like Haramkua, we have saved kids from Haramkua. A year ago, I think even in Artisville, we saved kids. Somewhere in Mamelodi, in Cullinan, we also have a death case. So it happens everywhere because there are people who are trying to use this as a money-making scheme. Hence, we even call them initiation mafias. So
Right.
society must be outraged. Society must unite and collaborate against these acts of criminality.
It certainly takes a concerted effort from all stakeholders involved. Thank you so much for your time this evening, Tate Kekana. That was Kiba Kekana, the spokesperson for the Gauteng Initiation Coordinating Committee.